It was 7:20 p.m. in Chiang Mai. The sun had already bowed out, but the light still clung to the edges of the curtains, like truth clinging to the corners of a lie. Shadows sliced across the room, sharp and surgical, and I, sitting cross-legged on the cool tile floor, stared at my bank statement like it was a death certificate. Tens of thousands, gone. Not in chunks, not in patterns, just erased. As if the last few years had never happened, as if everything I thought I was building had been swept away quietly, without ceremony. In the kitchen, Nicha was humming, chopping vegetables with the same rhythm she'd always had, the same ease, same melody. There was something poetic, no cruel, about how normal it all felt. I used to be someone in Chicago, Mark Thompson, marketing director, 2 divorces deep, 1 daughter I barely saw, and a closet full of suits I wore like armor. I spent years living inside PowerPoint decks and promotion cycles. There were good moments, of course, but by the end, the job owned more of me than I did. When the layoff came, it wasn't a tragedy. It was a release. I took the severance, sold the house, packed a suitcase, and left. Thailand wasn't a destination. It was an escape hatch. I flew out with a suitcase and a watch I hadn't worn in years. But for some reason, I put it on again, like it could measure time differently this time. I met Nicha during week 2. My knee was acting up, old college injury, and a local suggested a massage place tucked behind a soy near the moat. It didn't have the glowing lights or pushy signs you see everywhere else, just a cloth banner and silence. She didn't speak much, didn't need to. Her hands found the knots in my muscles like they had a map. When she looked at me, it wasn't with flirtation. It was observation, curiosity, stillness. Later, we shared a coffee under a street umbrella. She spoke softly, told me about her mother's rice farm, her sister's twins, her father's illness, the dreams she once had. A salon, a steady income, a life that didn't rely on foreign men walking into her shop with a limp and a story. I listened. I didn't ask many questions. I wanted to believe in something again. It started simple, a refrigerator for her mom, a roof leak, a scooter. Always after I asked, "Is everything okay?" She never demanded, never made me feel like a wallet. That's what made it so clever, so convincing. It wasn't seductive energy. It was something gentler, a shared dinner, a smile that lingered, a touch that said, "I see you." And so slowly, I started offering more, because love, real or imagined, can be incredibly persuasive. 6 months, we moved in together, a modest apartment near the base of Dui Suthep. Rent was nothing. The view, everything. We slipped into routine, morning market walks, late night noodles. She taught me to eat silently, respectfully. I taught her the absurdity of oat milk lattes. We laughed. We didn't talk about the future, not directly, but I assumed she saw it the way I did. Looking back, that assumption is where I handed over the keys. Small money requests became embedded in life. I stopped thinking of them as favors. They became habits. An envelope handed to her cousin. A transfer for a hospital bill I never saw. I justified everything. She's not flashy. She's not like the stories I heard. She's different. But one morning, I woke up early, jet lagged from a trip home to visit my mom, and found her whispering on the phone. Her face was tight, not scared, but cornered. When I asked who it was, she smiled and said, "Family. Always something, you know." I laughed with her. But something about the whispering, the way her voice tightened, made something in me freeze. I stared at the bank statement in my hands, the numbers, the names, and felt my throat close. It wasn't one transaction that tipped me over. It was a collection of them, quiet withdrawals. Money sent I couldn't explain. Names I didn't recognize. Names I didn't know. She walked in, holding a bowl of fruit. I asked, "Did you send money again?" Gently. As gently as a man can, when standing at the edge of betrayal. She blinked. Only help, family. Only small. But it wasn't small. It was structured, systematic, and the worst part, I think she really believed it was normal. I never yelled. I didn't throw accusations. That's not the Thai way. And maybe some part of me didn't want to see her as a thief. Maybe I wanted her to give me another story I could believe in. "Why didn't you tell me how much?" I asked. She shrugged. "I think you know. I think you okay, you smart man. That sentence broke me more than any confession, because in her eyes, this was never deception. It was partnership. It was trust, just not the kind I recognized. In Thailand, family isn't just priority, it's purpose. A daughter who earns sends money, a son who succeeds helps siblings. To give is love, to provide is respect, and I was the vessel through which she could fulfill that purpose. Was that exploitation? Or was that just cultural misalignment? But it's never just about the money, is it? Money is the symptom, the trail, the receipt for love you didn't realize you were paying for. What haunted me most wasn't the lost savings. It was the thought that every smile, every tender night, every morning she brought me tea was part of an equation, and I didn't even know I was doing the math. I remember she told me about 3 months ago that her dream was to open a little massage salon. Just one room, one table, quiet clients, enough for her to work in peace, something of her own. I asked why she hadn't done it yet. She said, need time, need money. I smiled and said, well, maybe we'll build it together. And maybe that was the moment I gave her permission, not on paper, but with a smile. I said, maybe we'll build it together. I meant a salon, a quiet little place, a shared dream. But she heard something else. She heard, you're safe now. He'll take care of you. And in her world, you never means just her. It means taking care of the whole family too. Maybe that wasn't wrong where she comes from. Maybe that was love. But by the time I realized we were building two very different futures, mine was already spent. I asked her where the money had gone. She didn't lie. She didn't even try. She just said, for family. Like that explained everything. That's when I told her to leave. No yelling, no scene, just quiet fury. Maybe you understand too. And that sentence lives in my head like an echo chamber, because I don't know if she meant I'd understand her side, or my own blindness. How I let it all happen. How I gave so much without ever asking why. How blind do you have to be to ignore every warning, just because the silence felt like love? I stayed in Chiang Mai, same city, but it feels like a different world now. Sometimes I still see her on a scooter. My scooter. At the market, laughing with someone new. She doesn't wave. She doesn't need to. We had our moment. And maybe she did care. But the retirement I built over the years, she and her family used it. What if you were her retirement plan? Not the villain, not the victim, just the resource. And what if she never lied? What if her mistake was assuming I understood? What if mine was pretending I did? And when it's all gone, would she even know what she took?